Welcome, everybody. My name is Kathy Nelson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers. And every month for a number of years now, we do something called Career Advice from a Pro, where we invite professional photo managers from all different backgrounds, which is what's so amazing about this. If you haven't checked out past interviews, they're all on our YouTube channel. And it's a pretty amazing. I'm always amazed at the backgrounds that people come from who join us, who start doing photo managing for as a business. And I always ask the same 5 questions, which I will do again with Rhoda. So you get a really great variety of the answers are always diverse, but the heart and passion for what they do is really pretty much runs through all the conversations we have. So I'm excited to introduce a good friend, Rhoda. A lot of members become friends over the years when if you've been a member for more than 4 or 5 years or been to 3 or 4 conferences, you quickly become part of like people that we really know. And Rhoda is one of those people. She's been a wonderful member, provides a lot of, she's a great speaker, has spoken at many of our conferences, always gets rave reviews for her speaking ability and on all sorts of different topics. So Rhoda, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us about you a little bit before we jump in with my questions.
All right, great. Hi. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for joining us. Right now, I live in Bluffton, South Carolina. So that is pretty far south in South Carolina, just 30 minutes from Savannah. So right now, it's about 70 degrees out. It may get up to 77 today. So it's beautiful, but we had a frost spell. So I lost some plants already, which is very early for us. Usually January is the rough time. But I'm going to enjoy the nice weather while we have it. Originally, and up until a few years ago, I was at the Jersey Shore. I saw somebody else is from the Jersey Shore. I was raised by kids and lived in Monmouth County, both Freehold Township and then Bradley Beach. And we made our way down here.
And so
So,
and tell us about when did you join the photo managers and the name of your business?
yeah, so the name of my business is Sunflower Photo Solutions. I also have a product that's called Dig Your Photos. It's under my LLC, which is Sunflower Photo Solutions. And I joined in 2016, right in the beginning of 2016. So I'm going into my ninth year.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, ninth year.
yeah.
So again, I love to ask the same questions, and we'll talk about you're the first person who's actually created a product. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. But tell us a little bit about so what made you decide to join or become a photo manager and do this for as a business?
Yeah. So everybody has a different path, and sometimes they're similar and sometimes they're not. But so I started out my career as an engineer. I'm an electrical engineer. I worked for Bell Labs, and then it became Lucid Technology, and then it became Alcatel. And I had 3 little kids at home, so I retired and stayed home for a little while. And I was at the point where I had kids in high school, and I was teaching math part time, but I was struggling with what I really wanted to do with my life, like a passion. And a few years earlier, my father had passed away, and I had inherited so many boxes and bags and carousels of film and photos and reels of film and slides. And I hadn't really attacked them. So that was on my list. I decided to attack them. And I really liked the process of going through the photos and trying to understand who people were and when it was taken. And um, yeah, I mean, it was cathartic for me. Unfortunately, it should have been done when my dad was still alive, so I could really understand what was happening in the moment. But my friends knew I was like searching for something to do, and a friend of mine had read this book. I can't remember the exact name, but it was like almost like Mom Entrepreneur or something like that. And in the book, it describes somebody who did scanning,
Oh,
which
really?
that's not what I was doing though. I was photo organizing. I hadn't gotten to that part yet. But she came to me and she said, I think this is it. This is the thing for you. And I was intrigued. I read the book first. And then I Googled, or I don't even know if it was Googled, but I Googled, and I found the photo managers just by doing like scanning businesses and things like that. And I went through as much of the website as I could, not being a member. And then I found two members who lived not near me, but in New Jersey. And I made meetings with them via phone, and I kind of vetted it because it's not something I ever heard of. And then I joined. And the first thing I wanted to do was become certified. Like I felt like that was the training that I needed to feel comfortable.
Wow. So it's funny. You can hear your engineering background come out a little bit, probably in the research that you did, right? So you met, you learned about it, and then you read the book, and then you met a couple of members and stuff. So that's not uncommon either. It's funny how different people, some people jump in right away with both feet, and other people do that kind of research and things like that. So what is the client, as you started your business, who was the client that you were starting to target, and what were the services you offered, and how did you find your first clients?
Yeah. So um, the at the time when you start a business, you're just kind of trying to put the word out there, and you're going to, as a first client, you're going to take.
Whoops. You must have muted yourself somehow, Rhoda. I don't know why all of a sudden you're on mute.
It's a okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Okay.
Yep. So I don't know about other people when they first start, but I was really just putting the word out, and I was going to start with whatever came in and really become good at that. So one of my first clients was somebody's great uncle who had he had this wedding picture of his mother and his father behind a wedding cake. And it was old black and white. So he wanted it scanned, and then he wanted the wedding cake taken out of it because he wanted a picture of his mother and his father. And then he wanted the arms of the mother slimmed down, which at the time it was like, wow, people do this? Like, can this be done? So through the photo managers, I found out that we had, I think it was called Hollywood Photo Fix, and it's still around at the time. We also have online Photo Fix. We are partners, I think, with both of them. But I used at the time Hollywood Photo Fix, and I scanned it in because I had the equipment, and they did the restoration or the reconfiguring for me, and he was a really happy client, and he told other people about it, and so that's how you kind of let your network grow from happy clients. And then one of my second clients was actually doing a memorial slideshow, which also comes, if anybody's done that before, it comes with a layer of kind of stress because it needs to be done quickly, um, well, and quickly. So that was kind of like learning by fire. Yeah. So
You
those
know,
were like my
both
first two
both of
clients.
these, both of the jobs that you described as those first jobs, this is what's so typical too, is like the first people assume when you start a business, sometimes I'm going to offer this service. I'm going to do like, photo organizing and scanning, or I'm going to do digital photo organizing. But then a client comes in with, which we all as photo managers know at this point, right? There's, what's that saying? Every client, every project is, every client, every project is a little different, right? So here comes, not only a photo restoration project and then a memorial slideshow, which are neither of kind of what you were talking about, that what you were doing for your dad, right? And so
Yeah.
that idea of learn by fire, is that something that did you just say yes and go and learn, figured you could figure out how to do these things, and by
Yeah.
taking, right?
On the advice of someone I know. I don't, after we had met the first time, it was like, you're going to figure it out. You can, try new things. I like the philosophy because, especially if you're just starting out, it allows you to kind of survey what there is to do and really experiment and then find what gives you joy, in addition to the client, right? So eventually, what there is to do in photo management is so broad that you can narrow down and just really do the projects that you want to do. But you will never know that until you until you actually complete and do a number of projects. So, I mean, that's definitely a piece of advice I would give somebody starting out, unless they were like, I am just going to do scanning and that's it. And that's fine too. But maybe you might find that you really love the print aspect of it and going through, creating beautiful shareables with your clients. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I I really
My
like.
favorite, my saying behind me that people always notice is everything is figure outable, and so that's a Marie Forleo statement. But I do think in this business, it's a good belief system to have. That just I used to say, just say yes and go figure it out, because one of the first clients that hired me after somebody else had suggested I do this was to do a video slideshow, and I had never done one, and I was like honest. I said, well, I've never done that, but I think I could figure that out. And they were like, great, you figure it out because I don't want to figure it out. Right. So that's kind of the common thing. So the next question I always ask her, what is it that you love most about what you do?
I love the connection. I I love the connection with the clients. Um, there is something that happens, whether you know the person or not, whether it's the first time meeting them or you've met them before. But when you look at photos together, there becomes a bond and this emotional connection, and it's something that I find really rewarding. I can't even describe it. It's just a warm feeling. I mean, I've hugged a grieving 80-year-old man when we were going through his wife's stuff. Not just photos, but he had to show me ballet slippers and things like that. And it's beautiful that they were all saved, all those mementos. Um, I've hugged a mom who's was grieving her son passing away. I've hugged parents whose children were getting married. I mean, it's just really, and some people aren't huggers and that's fine, but you can hold their hand or you can pat them. But I feel their emotions, and and as an engineer and really being trained to be black and white, it really opened up a whole world for me too, understanding that.
Yeah, I always said when I first named the business, we called ourselves the Association of Personal Photo Organizers before we changed the name to the Photo Managers. But I remember debating for a long time whether I should call myself a professional photo organizer or a personal photo organizer. And I went with personal against the advice of a number of people because I knew from my own work that it was deeply personal, right? There is a really personal experience when somebody opens up their life photos and videos or letters or all of that. There is that unique experience that you're walking in somebody else's life with them, right? It's a pretty powerful and very meaningful experience. So on the good news of what you love most, I always love to ask people though, what are the things that you don't like as much about your job? Because let's be honest, all jobs have things that we love and things that we don't like as much. And I always think it's really interesting for people to be honest and share, what are some of the challenges about the work that you do for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it does have its challenges. I mean, and they kind of change as the seasons go, right? I mean, you could be overwhelmed with too many clients or then stressed out that you don't have enough, and those are normal for any business. I think the one thing that I always get tripped up on, but I manage it, is that if you I so when I'm doing an end-to-end photo organizing, whether it's just print or just digital or a combination of both, I give very detailed information about my workflow and what's going to happen to their photos and things like that, and how I'm going to do things. And I estimate a price. And sometimes I get pushback and say, well, negotiation almost. And I certainly understand it's not a cheap endeavor to do, right? I mean, it takes skill and you have to know your worth, but also it takes time, which is also money. Um, and I used to struggle with how to come back at that because I don't negotiate with it. But I have come up with workarounds that have worked very well for clients coming in. One is, we can work where they do part of the work themselves, and I can point out things that they could do. Maybe they like to do it. Take all the photos out of the album. That saves time. Clean all your photos before we scan them. That takes time, time away from me doing it and saves them money. And I've even had a client who said, I only want to spend X amount a month, and that's how much we work on their project. So there usually is a workaround. It's just that it's not something that you expect when you initially, at least for me. Like, I put a lot of work into my estimations. So that's,
Well, that's an honest, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, pricing and knowing your worth and all of that is challenging, I think, for any business owner, right? It's not something that, and especially if you're new to owning your own business, and especially when it's a passion project, like you're saying, from that dilemma of I've held their hands and hugged them, and then I'm charging them for this work, right? There's that tension between those two processes, right? And so that makes sense. Another question I wanted to ask you that wasn't what I normally ask, but since you've been doing this for over since 2016, we did a survey recently where we've been going through the survey and educating our members about it as well, that 80% of our members that have been in business more than 5 years reported repeat clients, which is really a great testimony to the work that we do. And how about you? Have you had that experience? Have you worked with repeat clients so that you're not always like trying to, once you've been in it long enough, you do have like almost a group of clients that will come back to you for different projects?
Yeah, yeah. I have both repeat clients that are actual the end client. And then I have repeat clients that are, I have a photographer that uses me throughout the year, every year. And even now, because it's holiday card season, I get a lot of things from him. And he does school photos, so I do a lot of that. And I do sports banners. So every year, there's a bunch of high schools that reach out to me for their senior awards. So in the fall and in the spring. But then there's the end clients. They always want, I did their, let's say, digital organizing, and then they'll come back to me the next year and say, we really want a photo book, we went on vacation, and whatever they want, I mean, it's nice. It's a nice testament. And I think that's amazing that so many photo managers get the repeat clients. It means they were happy with your work.
Right. Yeah. And it means you're not always out there looking for somebody new all the time. Once you've been doing it long enough and you start to build that reputation and things like that. Um, so let's see, what advice do you, what you've kind of done this already, but what advice do you give to somebody who's just getting started?
Well, the first thing is to experiment, like I said, really find out what brings you joy, and then define exactly how you're going to go about doing that. Like, get your workflows down so that you can become quicker at it, make sure you become an expert at it, and then advertise that way. And you don't have to spend money advertising, but maybe slant your social media to those things, or when you network with people, mention that first. If you want to do photo books, you say, oh, did you ever go on a vacation, and then you're like, oh, I wish I had a memento. Then that leads right into saying that you create or curate beautiful photo books. And the other thing I would say is that don't discount networking and partnering and even collaborating. I mean, networking, talk to everybody about what you're doing or what you're trying to build, because you don't know who they know, and maybe who you could collaborate with or partner with, or maybe they could use you. When I first was getting started as well, I had always admired this one woman in our town, and she had started a business of her own. It was event planning. But I was just like, oh, I wish I could start a business. And that was before, of course, the photo managers. And so when I was starting Sunflower Photo Solutions, I invited her to coffee to talk to her and just ask her how she got the word out and how she finds her clients. And she ended up being a client, like one of my first clients, not herself, but she did a lot of bar bat mitzvahs and quinceañeras and sweet 16s, and they all use photos. So she ended up giving me a lot of clients over those first 2 to 3 years that I started. So don't discount where you're going to find your steady stream. And that's what I'll also say, partnering. Like, go out to the privately owned photo labs and talk to the people who own it and tell them what you're doing, because they may refer clients to you as well. And there's nothing better than knowing you'll get a steady stream of clients where you're not spending the money on advertising it yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We talk about that a lot, right? There's so many, just like you mentioned, like a professional photographer who sends you Christmas cards. So I mean, obviously you're making the Christmas cards from his professional photos from the clients that he took the photos of, right? I would imagine that's the process.
Yeah, yeah. Or I'm changing them. People are people are who they are. Like, he'll send me 3 different photos and say, can you take the baby and the father from this photo and put it in the main photo, and then take all these flowers out and put this in the background? It's like, why didn't you look through the, I mean, not to be mean, but look through the lens, take the flowers out.
But that if they're paying you for that, that's good.
Yeah,
So
no, they pay for that. I mean, that's great. Yeah.
yeah. Another thing that Rhoda's done uniquely. So one is, I know Rhoda, your business has always been interesting. One is you've done a lot of collaboration. You do a lot like the sports events, and she's spoken at our conferences and taught breakouts on how do you find different clients like that. And in the last year and a half or 2 years, I guess now, maybe a year and a half, she decided to create a product in response to the needs that she saw in the marketplace. So she's one of our first members who've actually branched off with a physical product. So if you want, feel free to tell us a little bit about, and Isabel's dropping a note there in the chat, but this is a great example of, seeing a need and then using that engineer brain of yours, obviously, to figure out, like, creating a product is not something that is simple and easy. But tell us a little bit about Dig Your Photos.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a journey. So I had a number of clients. So as an engineer, I love the digital side of everything. I mean, I love new software coming out. I just love it. And I had quite a number of digital clients who had previously had all their print photos scanned in by throwing them in a box, going to the big box stores, something like that. But they were mixed in with their other digital photos, all not named correctly and not dated correctly. And they were wasting, I felt, time and money by having me kind of make sense of it and rename things and redate things, when really they could have saved that time and money by organizing their print photos first before they scan them in. So I was struggling with how to empower people to do it themselves. And actually, the idea for Dig Your Photos came to me in a dream. It was very vivid. And I like to say, honestly, I rarely dream. So I pay attention, or I rarely remember my dreams. Put it that way. I'm sure everybody dreams. So I paid attention to it. And at the time, it was like, well, I could create a game maybe where people have fun doing it. And it didn't kind of fit into the total model of a game, but it turned out to be what I created, which is called Dig Your Photos. And it is my camera is having trouble focusing. It's a DIY photo organizing kit. I don't know if it says it there, might be the lighting. And it's meant to be used over and over again. So it is an activity. And it really is just fun and easy to use for an end user. So it has affirmations. You can do it. Start here with the instructions. And then included is tools that a photo manager would use. It's in the toolkit. You can't see it there, a timeline template that rolls out to be 5 feet long. So you can categorize your photos. And really the backbone of Dig Your Photos is these, what I call recipe cards. There are 4 of them. Why is my camera doing this? In front of my face, there we go. There are 4 recipe cards for the 4 steps that you need to organize your photos at a minimum. And then I call them quick sort cards that help you in your quick sort step, which is step 2, to quickly pare down your collection and really help you focus on the photos that are meaningful to you and that you want to organize. And each of the steps come with a QR code that leads you to a video of 5 minutes or less of me demonstrating. So we have instructions, why you're doing it on the front, how to do it on the back, and then the QR code with me demonstrating. Also online is a family timeline template that will help you identify all the milestones in your family's history, of starting with where your photos begin and end. And also tickle you for things like where you lived, what pets you owned, so that you could be your own detective to really understand how to create your family timeline physically, and then how to sort your photos on the family timeline so that they're all organized by either decade or generation, or by year if they're more recent and you know the years of your photos. So I really feel like this is an amazing way to empower people at home to organize their own print photos and encourage them to do it before they get their photos scanned.
Excellent. Yeah. And so what I love for people to hear about the stories, one is there's notes in the chat. And so if you're interested in purchasing that for your own photos or as a family gift or even as an understanding, but I think it just shows, the last question I was asked is, what's your outlook for the business future? And I think, we have one we have a couple of members who have started a podcast, or we have two different members that do different podcasts. Rhoda's created a DIY product. We have a number of members who have created classes. What's fascinating is this business, which started in 2009, really like such a thing as professional photo man, is just in, I believe, in its early stages of development, and all these like other interesting opportunities for people that want to maybe take it another step entrepreneurial. There's other options. But what would you say about the future? You know, what's your perception about the future of the business and the work that we do, and different opportunities for people to succeed?
Oh, I think the opportunities are endless. I think that with the advent of the younger generation, I'll say, people in their 20s and 30s, that they are taking pictures more and more for social media and to put on TikTok, and they're curating in their own way a story, but they're not getting rid of. I think that the opportunities for organizing photos and for teaching how to pare down or how to curate your own collection in a meaningful way, not just for social media, is going to really be necessary. These people are all going to, or many of them, many of my clients, have gotten married and they have kids, and now they're just overwhelmed by all the photos. They just snap them away, and then they can't find the really great one. So just by giving tips and tricks, they think you're amazing. And then, of course, then they want you to help curate their collection. So I think that print's always going to be around, especially this time of year. A lot of people want to get photos scanned to share, but there's so many great products out there. And the one thing I will say too, which I thought of while you were speaking, is that if you are starting a new career in photo management, I started, I think, in January, and I did not go to the conference that year because I felt like I was too green, and I felt like I would be odd man out, and I didn't know anything, and how could I even learn anything if I didn't know anything yet? But and then I went the year after, and I've gone, I think, almost every year except if there was a conflict. But the amount of support that you get just by meeting people and making friends and networking, and then of course the breakouts and the keynotes on top of that, is you get back tenfold every year, especially if you're new, because you're going to be making connections of people that you can just reach out to and say, hey, did you ever get a client like this, or something like that? And just knowing your friendly face, it's amazing. It's a really warm group. It's continued to be a warm group.
Yeah, I noticed that you have friends here in the chat that
Oh.
they're like,
I'm fan club.
but I do want to end on that. And please put your questions in the chat. I meant to say that yeah, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A with Rhoda, so please ask away. But I do think the conference is, well, we have two philosophies in the Photo Managers: a rising tide lifts all boats, and we're collaborative, not competitive. There is so much business and so many opportunities and ideas. Like, I mean, Rhoda can only do so many sports banners, right, in one tiny town in South Carolina. I mean, it's just and everybody helps one another. We all, because you're going to come across something that you don't know how to do, and somebody else is going to do it. And so there really is that amazing community. And I agree, coming to the conference, and we actually, I mean, I might mention it now, but we just put the date on the calendar. For new members, we're going to do a virtual meet and greet before the conference. So we're actually going to invite you to all meet each other virtually, so that and then we always have a meet and greet for new members before conference starts. But this way here, you even get to meet each other virtually, and we'll have prizes and things like that. So we want to do everything we can to make sure that new members that come to conference immediately feel connected to one another. And then our experienced members always look out for the new member, because they know they were once that person. So, and they want people to feel that feeling. So we'd love you to come to conference. Even if you're not a member, you're welcome to come to conference and think about it. So all right, so let's go to some questions. So Isabel, you want to read off questions for?
Yep. So the first question is, would you be able to estimate how much of your business is done for you versus done with you versus DIY?
Okay, so done for you means I'm doing it for a client.
I think done for you means you do it all. Done with you means it's a combination of you doing it with the client, and then the DIYs, they do it all themselves.
Yeah. So I would say 80% of my Sunflower Photo Solutions business is I do it for them. I have about 20% where I coach. So I have coaching clients that I meet like once a week or once every 2 weeks. And the DIY, yeah, I mean, I don't even count that as business because it's more of like I will talk with them and then they'll pay me to do a workflow for them and then they do it themselves. And sometimes they'll come back and ask me questions and then they'll just pay me for a coaching session. So really, I mean, I wouldn't consider DIY part of my business, except for selling Dig Your Photos, which is that's totally separate.
And you developed that probably in as a real recognition that there was a need in the marketplace, right, for something like that.
There is, because not everybody has access to a photo manager and not everybody can afford a photo manager and not everybody wants to give up control of their photos.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered in the right way, but that's yeah.
And Jackie says that you're so great at marketing and social media. How did you build your content and presence? What tools and technology do you like most to help manage and automate these activities?
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Jackie. So I started out with just Facebook and Instagram and on Sunflower Photo Solutions, and that kind of grew naturally. But I didn't have to really feed the fire because I had clients and I had regular clients and I had a feed of clients. But once I launched Dig Your Photos, which was like about a year ago, I knew that I had to really step up. So it's only been in the last year that I've stepped up my social media. We lost Kathy, but I think that's okay. Oh, I lost Kathy. I don't know. So I stepped up my social media and I created new accounts for Dig Your Photos so that it would kind of be separate because they have a different message. So I have a Dig Your Photos, Instagram, a Dig Your Photos, Facebook tied together. So I use Meta to be able to post to both at the same time, and then I schedule. And starting in June of this year, I launched a YouTube channel. It was something I wanted to do. I felt like because Dig Your Photos is a physical product and there's so much information out there on not just your print photos, but also any type of photos, that I could get an audience that way. And I really love YouTube. Go see me, everyone, on YouTube at Dig Your Photos. But the thing about YouTube is they have tools. One is TubeBuddy, which helps you understand the SEO and some of the keywords that you need. And I really like TubeBuddy. And also there is another app that I am interested. I haven't started using it yet, but I have it. It's called Keyword, I think. And that also kind of rates your keywords that you're using based on the topic that you have. The other thing I feel like, which is very synonymous also as a photo manager, but is getting easier as a photo manager, is that people who never knew photo managers existed, you have to first explain where you fit in to their kind of brain model of people working. So there's always this layer of explaining what you do when people don't understand why it exists, and then they get it. And it's the same thing with Dig Your Photos. There's a lot of explaining, like, this is not a product that ever existed on the market before, right? So it's very similar in that way. And that is why social media and YouTube, especially because you have longer format, I think is really good for the photo managers, a photo manager, and for Dig Your Photos. And just within the last 2 weeks, I started a TikTok account. So you can follow Dig Your Photos there too. And I'm surprised at how many views you get on TikTok versus, at least for me, on Reels on TikTok versus Instagram. So it's interesting. You may not directly get clients from it, but people notice. And so I would say start out with one or two, say, I'm just going to post twice a week or something. And you get content just in your daily life, talking to people. Like I said, I just did one on Thanksgiving, where I saw people posting pictures and they're all scrunched up in the video, in a picture vertically, and there's all this space at the top and space at the bottom. Like, next time you take your family picture, do it sideways, do it landscape. You'll get everyone in, and it'll, you might be happier with it in the end, and then you'll print it out.
All right, excellent. Lots of good advice. And again, this has been a process of growth to get to this point and stuff. And like you said in the beginning, sometimes the social media piece, when you're first starting out, you're working with within your own social network and people that know you and your own community and things like that. And then you can, as you expand. Any other questions there? Well, I think we're kind of slowing down. Any questions? All right. Well, again, we check out we linked our conference. We linked Rhoda's website and stuff like that. So if you want to check out more about what she's doing and follow her on social media and stuff, we appreciate it. But again, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope it's been as informative and fun. Rhoda, thank you as always. It was great. And this will be up on YouTube, and definitely go check it. Yeah, we have a YouTube channel as well, and it's made a big difference for us. We have a lot of followers, and it's a great place for you to go in if you want to hear other people's fascinating backstories. It's just really amazing to the variety of people and the backgrounds that people come from that are photo managers. So lots of people saying, great webinar. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day and have a wonderful holiday for those that you celebrate. And we'll see you in January 2025. Okay.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays.
Yes. Happy New Year.